Hello everybody and welcome back to the Origins Summit. I am with two of my beloved ladies who are doing wonderful work in this world in a platform that's just got a great name called Sexy Younger You. Got Dr. Cabeca and Robin Nielsen here, and we're going to have some fun talking about how to get vital and young and youthful and sexy in this modern toxic world because you don't have to roll over and die, and there's things we can do. So ladies, welcome.
Thank you. So
happy to be here. Great to see you both. And you know, you guys have been doing some tremendous work helping people kind of get their mojo back. And it's a powerful message because, you know, the way TV works and the way the industry works and the way we've been made to believe what is sexy and what, you know, constitutes beauty really usually revolves around buying certain products and slathering on makeup and kind of going down a certain algorithm that isn't necessarily healthy, but it's tied in with this notion of beauty. So I want to spend some time going into what it means to actually be healthy and how that is really intimately and inextricably tied with this real notion of what's sexy and what's attractive to mates and what could make us stand out in this environment, because it usually doesn't have anything to do with poisoning ourselves, and that's just buffoonery that we've fallen for. So I'm just going to open it up and we're going to go back and forth, and you guys do a lot of work together, so let's just bring it. Whoever wants to start with that question, let's go.
Well, that's a fantastic question, because that's what we're shown, right? That's what we're sold. This is what it's like to be sexy. This is what it's like to be youthful. Or we're fighting. We're anti-aging, and I am so against that terminology. I totally want to be like this rejuvenation, longevity expert. We just need something that's shorter that means that, and that's the whole goal, right? Aging healthfully, so we are youthful through our days. The eyes we look at, our spirits has endless energy, right? So our body needs to be reflecting that. When we're dousing our bodies with chemicals, and we're passionate about generational health, right? So what we put on us passes through to our fetus, through our breast milk, etc. And so we really need to be conscientious of what we put on. And at any age, it affects our cells, it affects our body's toxicity burden, and that ages us faster than anything. So in Sexy Younger You, Robin and I came together and said, okay, nutrition, medicine, what's the myths, what's the fallacies, and what do we need to inspire in people so they're not just accepting things by their number of years on this earth. Instead, looking to be vibrantly sexy, feminine, masculine in their entire energy, that's as healthy as possible. So they radiate health and can do what it was they desire to do, or their legacy, to leave their legacy. So I think it's exactly not from the outside in, it's the inside out, and that's how we become a sexy younger you.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I got so passionate about this because, I saw a lot of my relatives aging, and not in a very vibrant way. And I thought, it doesn't have to be this way, right? And I, as a younger person in my teens and 20s and even into my 30s, had issues of old people. I had arthritis, and I had digestive problems, and I had acne, into my mid to late 30s. And I was thinking, this can't be right, and so I think that, understanding from a very early age that aging doesn't mean aches and pains and chronic disease. In fact, it can mean exactly the opposite. We have so many terrific examples of people aging vibrantly and happily. And like, Dr. Anna was saying, it's so crazy, the whole anti-aging thing. And I think aging is a phenomenal process where we get wiser and happier and fun to be around, and let go of stuff that just doesn't matter anymore. Are we able to talk about your amazing movie at all? origins. I mean, it's so terrific, and it comes, right to the point of, I think what we have found so profound in our community is just the lack of connection. And you talk about that a lot in your movie, right? Just we're so disconnected. And that's what Dr. Ann and I have found in working with a lot of our clients in our Sexy Hungry community, is that we're disconnected to everything. We're disconnected to our bodies. I mean, let alone the earth, right? We're disconnected to our bodies. We're disconnected to our partners. We're disconnected to our families. We're disconnected to our community. We're disconnected to the food we eat. We don't even know. I mean, our kids don't even know where chicken McNuggets come from. Right? I mean, they have no clue that it comes from a chicken that was raised in a really poor environment. I mean, we're so disconnected, and just getting reconnected to our communities and to the food we eat. I mean, just from all the research that's happened around what helps us age more vibrantly and more healthy than any other people in the world is really that sense of connection, that living in the now, in the present, in your communities, the whole origins philosophy, right?
Yeah, well, and that's it. It's, we just had this thing where we took this hike and got up on this meadow, and there was this majestic, enormous oak tree that had been there for years and years, drawing on the minerals and the nutrients from nature. And it was just this, it was this spectacle. It was like, wow, look at this thing, right? And it was like, I don't know, maybe 100 years in the making. And it was just so powerful. It's how people used to look at their grandparents, right? Like, these are the big elders of our family. Yes. And they're beautiful, and they're full of wisdom, and they're not to be chucked into some old age home and left to die. And it is, I almost see like a parallel, if you will, in how we treat ourselves and our aging with the planet and with the throwaway mentality we have towards the environment that we came up with. So, I mean, for me, this oak tree was beautiful, right? In its majesty and in its age. Right? It had lived a healthy life, and it showed, right? And that's really what I see in people that are healthy. So I'd love for you guys to talk about what you see transforming in the beauty of the people in your community and in your universe. Because once they fall out of that fallacy of, like Maybelline and lipstick and all the stuff that is meant to make us feel like we need it to be beautiful, and they go back to good, clean, healthy living, we see that beauty, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we've spent the last century working on getting out of nature and moving inside, right? Our workspaces, our living spaces. We built these bigger, beautiful homes, more distant from our relatives. We've created an industrial environment, right? Versus the natural one we've been meant to live in. So the first thing is to really bring nature back inside, and for us to get out in nature. And that above anything else, just making that connection. Okay, I want to eat from nature. I want to be in nature. I want to connect in nature. I mean, we get a lot more than vitamin D from the sun. If we just look at sun rays, sunrise, how the setting that is, that establishes our circadian rhythm and can recharge us. And reconnect with nature is huge. And it's unfortunate that from an early age, our kids are in school, sitting at desks, we're sedentary. More of our workforce is sedentary in the sedentary environment, and that creates this acidic industrial view. So to make that comparison, if we think of foods that are bad for us on the acidic chain, like sugar, gluten, alcohols, those are acidic foods, red meats. And then on the alkaline range, our greens are, all our greens are cruciferous vegetables. Maca is amazingly alkalinizing. There's certain fish and herbs and all the fruit that we can use that are very alkalinizing. So that's part of nature. So bringing nature back inside, keeping that in balance, getting ourselves outside is one of the first keys to really establishing that natural connection, that rejuvenation process, that recharging process. It's better than any prescription I can write, honestly.
You've been dealing with this for a very long time too. I mean, you've seen thousands and thousands of patients, and one of the things that I marvel at when I watch these interviews in the summit, a lot of the people that are affiliated with the movie or the summit, is, you know, a lot of very seasoned medical doctors, osteopaths, you know, chiropractors, acupuncturists, people that just, you know, nutritionists that have been there on the ground level working with people, all coming forth and saying, look, we change the lifestyle, we change the person. The drugs, you know, once in a while, drugs are really useful. If you're bleeding out, drugs are the best, right? But when it comes to modern life crises that have to do with the environment, have to do with the food and the alkalinity and all that, it just seems that making some of these course corrections are where it's at. And you guys really are, you know, you get your fingers on the pulse of that because you see it in the people you deal with every day.
Yeah, and it becomes personal too. Like, you know, Robin relayed her personal experience that when my father was 79 years old, I mean, there's no age limit to living well. And I want everyone listening to understand that it also starts at an early age. But when my father was 79, and this is what I think transforms a lot of our functional physicians, our own personal experiences, this being one of them, is that he was told, I mean, I got a phone call from his cardiologist saying, Anna, your dad's done, you know, your dad's 79, he's had a good life, you know, World War II vet, you know, and, you know, there's not much more we can do. And I brought my dad to me and I put him through a detox, you know, regulated his hormones, put him on some testosterone, regulated his hormones, detoxed him, took away his scotch for 30 days. That was the worst part. and he, in seriously 30 days, he'd gone down from 120 units of insulin to 20. Most people on insulin don't think they can ever get to a lower dose. In 30 days, he dropped 100 units of insulin. And more importantly, he'd taken the wheelchair to come to me, and he was out on the tennis court with my kids. And that's the difference. Balancing your hormones, decreasing inflammation, removing toxins, those three fundamental steps can make in anyone's lives. And I've worked with patients in their 80s and seen them transform in as little as 30 days. And a big part of that is that reconnection phase, reconnection with their dreams, their hopes, their visions of themselves, recognizing it's possible, and then following the tools and keys, the, you know, essentials, and there's not many of them, which is the big surprise. It's a lot of letting go of things versus taking additional things on, and they do better. And you can see that over and over again.
I'd love to tag team on that because I think that we tend to make things so complicated now. And maybe it's the technology, I don't know what it is, but I loved, I'm going to go back to your movie again, you know, I love it's what we need versus what we want, right? It's what do we need? And you know, it was really clear. We need shelter, we need food, we need water, and we need fire. That's the one I always forget. But we need really basic things to be happy and live a good life, and our lives get so complicated. So one of the things that I absolutely love doing when I start working with people who are tired and wired and worn out and feel like they're done, right, with life, is I love telling them, you know, just keep it simple, right? Anna and I love saying pleasure is a nutrient. You know, get back to things that bring you joy, get back to yummy and delicious food, especially for women. We've deprived ourselves almost our entire lives. We've been on I just got off the phone with a gal who's been on a diet for 49 friggin' years.
That's exhausting.
You know, it's exhausting. And she told me, she basically gave me a list of 20 foods that she ate for 7 years. Because some doctor told her that those foods, she had this test that she would do, that those foods were okay for her. So for 7 years, she ate these 20 foods. She's lost 75% of her hair. Ouch. And she's, you know, 40 pounds overweight. She's working with one of our favorite colleagues now, you know, and I think that we've made life way too complicated, right? Get back to things that bring you pleasure, eat yummy and delicious whole real food, right? Get back to getting rid of stuff, simplify your life, reconnect to your community and your family and the people you love. And we've talked a lot about toxins. There are toxic people in our lives that sometimes are the very worst, right? I remember there's this great video of Jim Carrey going around, and he gives this really philosophical talk, and he painted this huge photo, or this huge picture. And it's the people in your life, and there's the people that are hanging on to your legs, right? That are bringing you down all the time, and those sometimes are why we get sick, right? So it's looking at all the toxins in our life and keeping it simple, getting back to what makes our lives yummy and fun and delicious, and just saying goodbye to the rest, and getting back to the movie again, healing ourselves and getting our gut in alignment. I'm not saying exactly as you guys did, but we'll heal the earth.
Amen. That's the message. If self-help and planetary health can finally be aligned again, the world is a place that has a future. And that's really, what we wanted to convey the most in this. I got a question for you guys, and this is kind of a tough one, but I know y'all deal with this a lot. Is one of the things that we deal with a lot of times in our community is, we talk about this, and then people come in and, especially people that have been married for 30, 40, 60 years. And, I call it toxic spouse syndrome, where they're like, I'm trying to kind of get myself up and out of this, but my husband is this cranky old guy that, makes fun of me and puts me down. Or my wife, she just decided that she's going to, die slowly, and, and I'm stuck there. So I'd love to tease this out, because a lot of the people, hundreds of thousands of people are going to be watching this summit. There's going to be tens of thousands of people that live in a circumstance where they feel trapped. And they kind of want to do the right thing and kind of step out of this, but the wife goes and buys the garbage, or the husband won't eat the healthy stuff. So I'd love to just tease that out of you guys a little bit.
Robin, you want to go first on this one?
Well, that is a terrific topic, because you're just right. It's a big dilemma in every single household. And I've been married 31 years, so I can speak to this very well. And I remember that I was having my health issues, but, I followed, I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but I followed my coincidences. So I was meant to be on a health journey from a pretty young age. And I did a lot of reading. I was lucky to be introduced to people who really inspired me. My husband was overweight, really overweight. We were super busy and stressed out running a large company. And I was so tired of that roll over my pants, I can't tell you. I said, this is it, right? I think that's one of my pet peeves, is when someone complains about something over and over and over again and does nothing about it. Mm-hmm. So I said to myself, look, you are so done complaining, just get this done. So I did my research, and I said to my husband, I said, look, if I make our lunch every day, I said, will you eat it? And he said yes, because here's the deal. We can't change anybody else. And I'll say that again. We cannot change anybody else. Mm-hmm. But what I knew in my heart is that I could get hot and sexy, and my partner could come along if he wanted to. And that's what I said. I said, I'm going to get all hot and sexy on you, and I hope you're coming.
Yeah, I'd like you along for the ride, but
I'd like you to go with me.
This train is leaving the station. I can't sit here and die slowly with you. That's interesting.
Exactly. And you can't. You can do it for yourself. And the cool part is, when you start, getting all hot and sexy, they're like, oh, wow, I better get up and do something. That's not always going to happen. I have some clients where they've got all hot and sexy and their partners are still sitting on the couch. And I think that you have to make a decision. I think that you have to make a choice. It's not always an easy choice, but I can give you an example. I was coming back from our retreat, Dr. Anna, last year, and I sat next to a very heavy man. And we got to talking, very big man, and we got to talking, and I learned that his wife had divorced him after 41 years of marriage. And he was very upset about it. He was living with another gal, and that was okay, but it didn't replace his wife. And I said, so what happened after 41 years? He said, well, I had a heart attack. And he said, I went into the hospital and I had a couple of valves replaced and my wife left me. And I said, how come? And he said, because she didn't want to be married and have to caregive to a man who was drooling and sitting in a wheelchair. And I said, so did that prompt you to make some pretty, dramatic changes in your lifestyle? And he said, no.
See you, dude.
I think there's so many interesting points, because as I look at the outcome versus, what's going on in the underlying physiology, our behavior is driven by our biology. And so what's going on in our biology in a lot of these cases? Well, one thing is, first and foremost, resentment is lack of self-care, right? Resentment is lack of self-care. So when you're feeling bitter, et cetera, we need to explore those attitudes, become an observer of them, and heal ourselves first, right? Mm-hmm. Fix ourselves, prioritize yourself, put time in your calendar for yourself, and involve, make it available for the rest of your family. The partner that's not wanting to is a couch potato. You can plant a seed, but you can't, all you can do, right? And what's interesting, time and stress, like the person whose husband had the heart attack, I wonder that high stress disconnect part of the phenomenon, that high cortisol, oxytocin drops, initially it will, you'll have this fluctuation in hormones, the biology that goes on below this is huge. The chronic stress of chronic elevated cortisol, whether it's from, post-traumatic or stressful life or whatever the situation, physical stresses, that cortisol, oxytocin can't exist here together. You're going to have kind of downregulation of cortisol. It's really interesting, but oxytocin will go down. So cortisol chronically being pushed, oxytocin will go down. Feel that disconnect. Why do people, when they're, they move into a house or they're remodeling a kitchen? Your husband hasn't changed, you haven't changed, but the stressors changed and you feel less connected. So at times in your life when you feel less connected, look, what are the stressors in my life? How am I caring for myself? How am I nourishing myself? Are my hormones balanced? Am I getting out in nature and reconnecting? Because that will make the entire process a lot more amicable, right? We're not going to be as angry, as irritable, as resentful, as fearful, all these emotions come up. So we create a detachment from that by keeping our tank full. And we can look and say, okay, well, what's real, what's perceived, and let me nourish myself. Let me make sure I'm getting my self-care in, because I think that will make the biggest difference in a relationship. Pedram, in my marriage, and I was married 15 years, and we lost my son in a traumatic accident. And initially, we were really drawn together, but over time, we have this amazing disconnect, right? And it was a disconnect from myself. It was a disconnect from my, so many things in my life. A retreat, let's say, pulled inwards, and that is, there are many things, situations certainly, but the physiology around that too. And I always say, if I knew then what I know now, our marriage, whether it would have lasted or not, I don't know, but maybe not in such an unlovely way. So self-care is so important. So I emphasize that to every woman. I've seen patients come in, on the verge of divorce or in horrible relationships, and there's things we have to do. But the first thing is always take care of yourself first. Prioritize yourself first. Be safe, number one, but prioritize yourself. Fill your tank. Let's look at your nutrition. Let's look at your exercise. Let's remove toxins, including toxic activities, relationships, etc., whatever you may be using to band-aid the emotions, and hormonal balance. Those are really key aspects. to assessing how we really feel in a relationship. When physicians are burned out, high number of physicians are burned out, high divorce rate in those physicians, right? But that's a physiological disconnect. Because you can look back years later and say, okay, well, let me replay that in my mind. What could I have done differently? Isn't it great to have 20/20 vision 20 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. But that's something to understand, is what's going on with our physiology, and it's a real phenomenon.
And I love that you brought that up, because that happens definitely as you age, right? Your hormones change so much. Women become more like men become more like women. Women all of a sudden start to speak their mind, and men are kind of freaked out, and men start crying at movies now, and things change. And my husband and I went through a really hard time 5 years ago. I didn't think we were going to make it. And one thing that really helped us was to sort of reassess what our life goals were. To have a VIP day together, to do our vision boards, to write down what our values were. Like, are we still on the same page? I mean, it was a tremendous gift, and we learned that we were way more on the same page than we thought. It was like, okay, we can make this happen. And then, if you have willing partners, then you can start looking at the hormones. If they're open and willing, you can start improving the diet. You can do some testing. You can, change some supplements around, and it all will work for sure. But you have to have, the same vision, be on the same track. And, as you've been married longer and longer, you've got to do those reality checks.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, look, I haven't been married that long, but we just had a baby. And I'll tell you, in those first 3 months, you just want to kill each other because no one's sleeping, right? And life brings its little stressors, and that's when the oxytocin comes in real handy. That's when the better, cleaner diet comes in real handy. I'll tell you right now, with the lack of sleep, finishing this movie, and the lack of sleep, and all the spinning parts in my universe, if I was to eat like an idiot, I'd either be kicked out of the house or, crash my car or do, life's little catastrophes oftentimes happen when we are just running so far out of that green zone that something's got to give, right? And so I love the fact that you guys are talking about this kind of health reserve, or this kind of psychological reserve of vitality, or some sort of element that offsets all the arrows that are coming at you. It's like we need a shield in this modern world, because the UPS truck that just drove by is polluting my air, whether I like it or not right now, right? So there's certain things I can elect to not bring into my house, and other things, we're subjected to, and we're trying to get out of our houses as quickly as possible. So I'd love to talk about this reserve, because most people throttle in life in a way where they're like, well, I feel fine, and I'm not sick, therefore I'm just going to keep going, and if I get sick, then I'll pay attention to it, versus having a little bit of that reserve to offset any potential damage.
Yeah, and it's really about coming from a place of abundance, right? It's that resilience that we talk about, right? When we're coming from a place of abundance, when we're grateful for the little things, it's easier to put things into perspective. So there's that, there's that positive mind, right? The resilience comes from making sure, like you said, eliminating the toxins we can, detoxing on a regular basis, recognizing that what nourishes us is the only thing that will cross our lips, right? And the physical movement part, or the meditation, the stretching, the exercise that we need to do each day. I mean, that is just part of kind of filling our tank, so that we come from this place of abundance. And also, the value list, the priority list. I think those are really huge factors in filling our tank. And certainly, we'll use handfuls of supplements, but for the person out there who's like, hey, I've got my pedal to the metal, I'm rocking it, I'm working 80 hours a week. Hey, I've been there. I've totally been there, being an OBGYN resident with 2 babies. Are you kidding me? I totally understand. And that was before the restriction to 80 hours a week, right? We worked 100 hours a week, and it was that, oh yeah, I'm fine. I didn't even take a handful of vitamins. But you know what? When you crash, you crash. There's times where you just spend the weekend in, just kind of rebuilding. But the things that help you rebuild are getting out into nature, those long nature hikes, is recognizing, okay, we can't keep poisoning our body with caffeines, with stimulants, with, things that will make us feel like we're more alert or that will keep us going so we don't crash at the steering wheel on the way home. But it's emptying your tank, it's taxing your organs, your glands for reserve, and it's going to create less enjoyment, less of the joie de vivre. So that's that oxytocin, right? Cortisol and oxytocin don't coexist very nicely together. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, and I think that we, if you're the average American, right, and I know that we're talking worldwide here, and it's definitely in all parts of Europe and many, many places, we pride ourselves on our productivity. Absolutely. We are so proud of how few hours of sleep we need. Mm-hmm. We're so proud. I can speak from experience. I'm so proud of how many things I got done today. And you can only do that if you're doing things the wrong way, right? If you're artificially stimulating yourself. And I think that, if you're healthy, you can have incredible energy. Don't get me wrong, but I think that, the 80 hours that Anna's talking about, and certainly, if you don't get enough sleep at night, you have to use chemicals to I consider coffee a chemical. I guess it's a drug. It's a drug, it's a drug. And, if you look at it from, the fact that it constricts blood vessels in the brain, it really pushes adrenal function and hormone balance. You're really using up your building chemicals way too fast. And so, and anytime you do a stimulant like that, a lot of times you've got to do something to calm you down, yep. Right? Especially if you're like me and you're a slow caffeine metabolizer. So, here comes the alcohol, or, here comes maybe the medications to settle your body down at night. And then once you start that, it just easily perpetuates itself because you're tired again the next day because you didn't get good restorative sleep. So, even a day, you take a day like that, and now all of a sudden it becomes a regular habit. And so I think it's really easy to get sucked into that mindset. I think coffee places are the most visited places in the universe. Mm-hmm.
Well,
they're very, very addictive.
We look at the research, the cultures that drink wine, so resveratrol, that must be good for you. The wine must be good for you then, right? Or coffee in these cultures, coffee must be good for you. Everything in moderation. Believe me, I've done my research on wine, coffee, and chocolate, lived even on a coffee plantation. So I've done my due diligence. But seriously, what created the health, the longevity? Was it that you sit and you're in a group and family and the dinner table's 20 long? That, or you're at a table and you're enjoying yourself. It's a party, it's with friends, it's socializing, drinking your wine. It's never by yourself, and it's not, these tall, big cups all throughout the day. Nowhere else in the world do they drink that. They're catching on. I was just in Paris. I was lecturing for a medical conference in Paris last week, and there was a Starbucks in our hotel, and I was totally refused to go there. Then, I'd much prefer a little espresso cafe. So, but that's the volume compared to now what's trending. So is what trending, supporting us, or is it depleting us? And that's a constant question I think we need to ask, especially if we are feeling stressed. And in the perimenopause, menopause, many of your younger clients listening who've had PMS, that those are all hormone imbalance. And when there's hormone imbalance, we need to get to the underlying physiology and reset that. We need to remove things that aren't serving us, no white, no wheat, no sweet, very little red meat. And we need to add the things that are, you can pick it, peel it, fish it, hunt it, milk it, grow it, then for the most part you can eat it. So kind of in that concept. And then, what do we need hormonally to balance us? Because we do live in a toxic world, and we may be, a single mom working 2 jobs to raise her kids, and we may need to support with progesterone, with adrenal support, with adaptogens. And those are things that, may come into play. But so when we think about, what are the things that are best medicine practices? if we want the glass of wine, have it in a group that's social and, with friends, close friends, and family. And that, I think, creates the longevity. I mean, certainly the science not behind drinking alcohol. That's not brain healthy. So what was it, what is it that creates the longevity population, these blue zones around the world? And that's really good, fascinating topic in and of itself.
Yeah, I'd love the entire world to be a blue population again. It seems that these pockets of sanity are the exception to the rule, and there's this kind of cannon fodder mentality about the general populace that they're just hopeless and they're never going to make it. And I don't accept that. Right. And I know that you guys don't. Right. Like, this isn't about being elitist and saying, well, the rich, smart people get to live and the poor people, have to eat this kind of food and make, poor decisions because they're doomed. And so there's a lot of that nonsense that's already getting dispelled all over the place. There's two dots that I'd like for you guys to connect here. One is this resilience bank account that comes from making the right decisions so that you can offset the damages that come from the world that we live in. And the other one is the point that we started with, which is this concept of a sexy younger you. And I want to talk about how radiant health and the concept of being sexy, being desired, the thing that all advertising sells towards, what all people are, clamoring towards, and reading People magazine and watching what, some idiot is wearing on TV and all the stuff that we get caught up in because, fashion and sexiness and all these things are kind of tapping into this biological desire to, be loved and procreate and all these things. How do we connect good, vibrant health back up with the essential nature of what is sexy, and how can we kind of disconnect this nonsense that's interjected itself into that meme?
Well, you have a lot of concepts in there, Pedram. but Anna and I created Sexy Younger You in a completely different context, really, than I think it's seen oftentimes. And we think of Sexy Younger You like we've had a couple of emails from people that say I'm sexy enough or something, and I don't need to do your sexy. I mean, it's like no, you don't get it. Like you're missing the concept. Like Sexy Younger You just it's what you embody, Pedram. It's that inner vibrance, like you say, resilience that just sort of oozes out of, your skin and every cell of your body that just makes you so attractive because you have this inner energy. You've got that twinkle in your eye. You have that skip in your step, right? You're magnetic. People are attracted to you because you just have that that spark, and that's the sexy younger you. That's what is so attractive.
I'm crushing on you too.
You're what?
I said I'm crushing on you too, Pedram.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I didn't realize we were talking about me, and I'm going to make a brown man blush. They were talking about one.
We can do it.
Yeah.
We can do it.
Well, if anyone could do it, you could do it. Well, yeah, but that's so. What is that, right? What is it that someone who can have magnetism has, right?
Yeah.
Good, clean, healthy living, walking out in the sun.
So
that's the thing. It's like I will see 5 girls in a lineup, and if you asked me which one was the most attractive, it would be the one that's most naturally attractive. It's like the je ne sais quoi that like your eyes don't even see, but like your deep kind of animal senses go, yeah, this is a fertile, beautiful, healthy specimen of a human versus, oh, she's wearing the right Christian Louboutin shoes, therefore she must be. Right? And that insanity is just somewhere where humanity's been intercepted, and it gets her to spend her hard-earned dollars on those dumb shoes and, eat Taco Bell or Del Taco at night because she can't afford real food. Right? And it's these really poor decisions that come from that confusion, that core level confusion that I'd love for you guys to tease out a little more.
And I think that's what we wanted to reclaim sexy, right? Sexy being magnetic, vivacious, with full vitality. I mean, that's what sexy is. Confident, someone who serves in their community, gives, is loving, and is loved, right? That is sexy. That is the word sexy, not what's perceived media sexy, not what you're, we wanted to reclaim that word sexy. And because sexy is health, sexy is vitality, sexy is, it is exactly that magnetism, that connection with your own divine energy, your feminine energy, your masculine energy, recognizing that you are fully, an electromagnetic being, right? So when you're seeing a line of 5 people, be aware, take away any preconceived notions from media, etc., what you're told is sexy, and just feel it. Okay, who is the most attractive to me? Who is the most attractive personality there? Who is the most attractive being? And the radiant, healthy, confident one with genuineness, right? A genuine smile is the one that you're going to be most drawn to. And if we take away those preconceptions, so the key thing is, and what I want women and men to reclaim is their own sexy, right? Is their own inner fire, let it be, that they're from the physiological level, their mitochondria is like firing off ATP. They've got tons of electromagnetic charge, right? They're energetic, they're magnetic, they're attractive. And that's because at this cellular level, and, when I went to school, the smallest things were, proton, electron. Now we have quarks. I think, is there something smaller than a quark? I mean, so beyond what we can see, right? And beyond what we know, there's this pheromonal connection to, right? So we have, beyond what we can see, this intuitive sense, okay, what is healthy? And regaining our intuition is so important, because academia does not mean common sense, and common sense is not common practice. So we have to take the intellectual and combine the intuitive. And that, is what we need to do moving forward to have this beautiful reconnection with nature that we want for our generations that follow us, right? I have 4 daughters. I am passionate about seeing this change and seeing our perceptions change and communities grow closer together. And us as, women, men, etc., being drawn more to participate in the community versus lonely, isolated, depressed, drinking, whatever the ism of choice is, and reconnecting with their true potential, right? Their life, their purposes that they're meant to live, and being able to live it fully, pain-free, joyfully, and in love, and being loved. Those are key. And that's sexy.
That's sexy. And my concept of sexy is being able to do whatever you want to do as long as you can and going with your boots on. Right? I mean, forget the aches and pains and the wheelchair and the, nursing home and all that. Let's just be more in tune with our bodies and give our bodies what they need along the way. I mean, every day is different, right? Every day we need to pay attention and change things up a little bit and enjoy life and go with our boots on. And I think that there's a super important concept that I really want everyone to embrace, because it certainly was heading me down the wrong path, and I know it's this way for a lot of people, and that is pushing your way through life. So pushing your way through life instead of flowing. And I think that we get in the mode of doing and pushing and generally speaking, being out of touch with your bodies and or with our bodies, and not being in the now, not being in the present. And it's very easy to get very sick that way very fast. And just, finding a way to reconnect with nature, I think that was what turned my health around the fastest, was actually learning how to surf. And it was because I felt that I could, well, my husband and my younger son played a dirty trick on me. They said they'd teach me how to surf. Well, as soon as we got out there, they kind of said, "See ya." And I, the waves were strong and the water was very cold, and I felt I could force my way through the ocean, right? That I could push my way through the waves, and I learned very quickly that I was going to have to surrender, and I was going to have to be more humble, and I was going to have to be more patient. And I mean, just being in the ocean, and kind of like you were talking about when you were in the desert, right, with all the animals and having to be aware. There's a saying, you can never turn your back on the ocean. And it's very, very true. You turn your back on the ocean and your life could be over in a heartbeat. So paying attention to the animals around you. When I was surfing just last week in Mexico, there were all these bait fish, that were flying around us. And guess what follows bait fish?
Sharks.
Big fish,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And so, then we saw the bonita and the mackerel, or, the bigger fish following the bait fish. So you just have to pay attention, and you have to, read the waves, and actually every few minutes changes out there. The waves change, how they're breaking changes. You can go from a really mellow wave to a wave that, breaks top to bottom in less than half an hour, depending on where the tide is in the reef. So nature is powerful. And if you find that you're pushing your way through life and you're dissatisfied, get yourself out into nature. I think it's the best thing you can do to put yourself in the now, in the present moment.
I love that.
Yeah. And I think what's important, is go back to couples and thinking, we have a perceived sense, like you were saying, the couple that's been married so many years, that sense of disconnect. And reconnecting sexually is really important. And I think when there's physical, psychological barriers, that it's important to address those as well, because that's part of our twinkle in our eye, right? When we can remain intimate with our partner, our true love, continuously, monogamously through life. And I believe that's the sauce of life, right? We know that's higher levels of oxytocin, longer longevity is a healthy relationship. So reconnecting those sexual aspects as well is part of what we do with our Sexy Younger You transformation program. I created sexual CPR to put life back into sex and sex back into life. And I found in working with so many menopausal women or andropausal men is just the physical barriers, either vaginal dryness, which is completely curable and correctable. And like, I'm on the mission to eradicate vaginal dryness, because for many women, that's what keeps them from reconnecting with their partner. They feel like, okay, subconsciously, they're not recognizing that they hurt when they have sex, and that's keeping them from having sex. Every time you have sex, it hurts. Why would you want to keep having sex? I mean, but it's not a common association. The same with men with erectile dysfunction. And those are correctable. Very naturally. And it's what many of our society doesn't recognize. But that is so important. When you were talking in Origins about the microbiome, vaginal health, and I just wanted to make this point during our talk, because vaginal health is a reflection of intestinal health. And there's so many, as a gynecologist, every day you have clients that are coming in with nothing's worse than a vaginal yeast infection. Seriously, vaginal complaints that can make your day miserable. They're easy to get rid of. It's also a red flag that the gut is unhealthy, and we need to address those gut issues. And so that's significant. Vaginal dryness, vaginal diseases, dysplasia. How many abnormal pap smears are just being treated and culpoed, and women are never being told, well, we may need some methylators. We need to decrease, improve your detoxification pathways, improve your immune system, because this is a viral and we can reduce it. And those are the things that I saw that were absolutely transformational in people's lives, is getting to the root cause, is healing the gut, getting to the root cause, reconnecting with nature, and recognizing nature is within us. Within the microbiome, it is within us, and we need to be part of it. And those things, recreate the sexy, recreate the connection. But for our listeners, not to take a symptom as a sign of, there's something unhealthy in my relationship because I don't want to have sex. Well, let's dig deep. What are the underlying reasons? You're having pain every time. Why the hell would you want to have sex?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a really important point. And the humans, amongst, I think it was like chimps and dolphins, who also partially, sometimes recreationally, have sex. We do it beyond just biology. We do it beyond just creating babies. It's lovemaking. It's a wonderful, beautiful thing, and that drives a lot of our behavior. It drives a lot of our desires, and it drives a lot of our sense of self-worth, if you will. And to not be able to have that relationship with your husband, your spouse, your lover, whatever, will immediately create a wedge, and that distance will eventually start whittling away at your will to put up with someone's quirkiness, right? And now it's like, well, they eat like crap and they just had a heart attack and they won't change their diet, and we haven't had a sex life in 30 years, and stack, I'm out, right? And so it creates a tremendous amount of pain and suffering in our community. So I think that's a huge point, and I think one of the points that really I wanted to magnify even more in the movie, that we just ran out of time, is mom's gut health, mom's vaginal health, baby through the vaginal canal, inoculation, earth inoculation, getting your system set up for the world that's out here. So the legacy of mom and dad generationally and environmentally has already created, it's almost like the Indian notion of karma. It's already karmically embedded what that kid's going to have to put up with in terms of disease, allergies, pathology, food sensitivities, and chemical burden on day one. And we owe it to our children and our generations to clean up our act so that we can help bring life through us in a much more sane way.
Yeah, and as an obstetrician, I've seen the tide of change with that, right? At Emory in Atlanta, our C-section rate was less than 15%. Our small community hospital was less than 20%. I was the only doc there doing VBACs, vaginal birth after cesarean, because at that same point. And now the C-section rate in our hospital is over 60%. And scheduled first C-sections, it's a sin. It really is. It's a big problem. And then, because nothing, the bond between a mother and a child, a father and a child is just tremendous. To see our child suffer for any reason, for convenience sake or concern, maybe perceived concern's sake. I mean, there are definite indications. Obstetrics, 95% pure joy, 5% pure terror. But there are definite reasons. But to have scheduled, for perineal preservation, that makes no sense whatsoever. And I'm with you with that. What we, the antibiotics given pre, during birth, especially with C-section, well, we usually, that's standard at cord clamp, but you're giving the mom antibiotics, and children often get antibiotics at very early ages, and you think, okay, what protective layer have we destroyed? And as a parent, we never want that to happen. And unfortunately, when we go to advocate against those things, we're perceived, be reported to the Department of Family and Children's Services. We're perceived as bad parents, and we need to just raise consciousness on a global level with this as well. It's tragic. Not to mention the toxins that are, passed from mother to child. So generational medicine is huge, and that's why at every age, when we work with our sexy younger youth population and younger populations, we're like, your health will be emulated by your grandchildren or your children. And so it's important to recognize that what the mother gives their child or the grandfather gives their children, they're role models. So what you do for yourself, they're looking at that. Your values, your ethics, your nutrition, your movement, what do you do for fun? Keeping those into perspective, because those little guys are watching you and they're learning from you and they want to be like you. And there's a lot that we need to do to rebuild the intestinal microbiome of us, and post antibiotic usage, post Halloween.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, Halloween alone should be a criminal act. What we do to children. It's so funny how flu season and Halloween coincide, and you look at some of the studies of what happens to the human immune system with just a few granules of sugar, and how quickly our immune response diminishes and weakens, really, because the sugar has kind of overwhelmed our systems. I mean, that's just a ridiculous data point that, if you're a parent, if you're a human, and you think Halloween's a good idea, you really need to start looking at what the sugar is doing to our children and how much of a detriment it is to their future, right? So guys, we're running out of time. I want people to know where to find you. You guys are just so much fun and you're doing such great work. So please share.
Well, we're at sexyyoungeryou.com.
Awesome. All written out, Sexy Younger You. These ladies have helped a lot of people. There's a lot of things we talked about here. Sometimes I like to riff because when I get smart friends on the call, I just, like anything goes. And so you guys were awesome. You've shown deep domain expertise in a lot of things. So Sexy Younger You, thank you so much, both of you guys. Robin Nielsen, Anna Cabeca, you guys are awesome. And find them. You guys, if you're listening to this and you want more, go to sexyyoungeryou.com because there's a lot there.
Thank you, Pedram. Great luck with your movie. It's terrific, and we hope to get it out to all those folks who don't know about all this amazing information.
Yeah, it's a movie everyone wants to watch. So
yeah.
Thank you, Pedram.
Thank you. And if you're watching this right now, think of the people who you probably wouldn't think of to share this with as well, and share it with them. Because they're the ones that probably need to hear it more than the choir.
Yes.
Yep. All right, signing off.